Now that we can create different types of MCP servers, let's see that how we can create MCP clients. We said that you can have a host application, for example, Claude Desktop or ChatGPT Desktop, and it can have clients or MCP clients, and MCP clients can potentially load the code of MCP server or the binary file of MCP server inside its process. In this scenario, the application manages the overall user interactions and the end user experience. It loads the client code inside its process, and the client loads the MCP server inside its process as well. And you know that in this case, the client communicates with MCP over a protocol called STDIO or standard IO. And we said that there is another way of doing this, which is the application will run in a process and the application will have clients inside it, but the MCP process is remote, it's not inside the client, and in this case they communicate over streamable HTTP protocol. If you run your MCP server using STDIO protocol inside an AI assistant application such as Claude Desktop, you normally don't need to create a custom client because the applications have the clients built into them and they know how to deal with different types of servers. The main use case and the main reason that why you would need to create a custom client is to work with MCP servers over streamable HTTP. Although the SDK for MCP allows you to create both STDIO and streamable HTTP based clients, as I said, the main use case is for when you have an AI agent, for example, and the AI agent needs to access an MCP server. And in that case, normally the MCP server is not built into the AI agent, it's somewhere else. And therefore, I will show you that how you can create a client to use a streamable HTTP to access an MCP server. Also, I need to remind you that if you use a framework for developing AI agents such as BAI or LangChain, those frameworks often have this built-in capability to call MCP servers, either MCP server tools or MCP server resources when they work with the large language model. I will show you how we do this when we cover the ACP protocol in the next section of the course. However, just so that you know how you can develop a client, let's go to Visual Studio. So I'm in Visual Studio and I have created a directory under MCP called client. In here, I have copied the server file that we had before. This MCP server had a tool called greetings and it was run with a streamable HTTP protocol. We did that in the previous lecture. Now to access it, we can create a client. Writing a client is very easy. You need to import two classes. One is client session from MCP library. One is streamable HTTP client. So because in this client, I'm going to use a streamable HTTP, I'm importing streamable HTTP underline client class from mcp.client.streamable HTTP. If I was going to use STDIO, that would be from mcp.client.stdio import STDIO client, and then instead of a streamable HTTP client, you would use STDIO client. The rest of it, 90% is the same. Now you need to create an instance of a streamable HTTP client class. If you were using STDIO, you would create an instance of STDIO client class. And then you will gain access to its read stream and write stream attributes. And then within this, you will also need to create an instance of client session that we imported in here and pass the read stream and write stream to it and call it a session. Using this session, you can do different things. The first thing is that you need to initialize the session that will make a connection to your MCP server. Then you can call list tools to get the list of the tools. Session also has list prompts and list resources as well. So if your MCP servers are prompts or resources or templates, you can call these methods instead, not list tools. So I just comment this so that you can have it. Once you get the list of the tools or resources, you can iterate over it and get the name of the tools. Now, if you want to call any of these tools, you can just make a call to it using its name. So if we go to our MCP server, you will see that my mcp.tool has a name called greetings. So I can just say session.callTool and then pass the name as greetings, and it's a sync function, so I have to await it. And then my server has a parameter called name, which is a string. You pass the value to parameters with the argument parameter and as key value pairs. So the parameter name was name and the parameter value was my name, Arif, and I put it here. The only reason that here I'm iterating over the tools that have been returned to me is to make the code a bit defensive and make sure that if this greetings is not here, then the code is not going to blow up. Otherwise, you don't need to iterate over the tools or resources. If you know the name of the tool or resource or prompt, you can just use it here and call it. And then the return type can be different things. So because my server here is returning an instance of greeting class, that means that this is a greeting class. That means that it's returning a structured type. If you are returning a structured type, your result will be structured content. If you are returning an image, your result will be image content. If you are returning an embedded resource, for example, a PDF, your return type will be embedded resource. And you can read every attribute of these return types using get. So because my greeting class has an attribute called message, here I say greeting.get message. So basically you can read any property. Now let's run this. My server is running already. So this available tools greetings is basically this print. And the message that was returned to me from tool was this hello Arif, which is a greeting. So as you can see, it's quite easy. Later I will show you that how you can use BAI to basically call the tool and not even have to write a code for accessing the MCP server.